Violet here, and we're starting a new series on this channel, which is all about the mysticism hidden in fairy tales and kind of looking at, fairy tales and stories and legends from a perspective that takes into account classical esoterica and ancient knowledge and wisdom, and I'm so excited to do it. I've been really thinking about this series a lot, and for months actually, and especially researching the Arthurian legends. So I was trying to think about what is a good entry point? Where should we, take this first video? By the way, this series is kind of a companion to my classical esoterica in the modern age of discernment series. So both of these are going to kind of work together, but in this one we're going to really focus in on stories. So in thinking about a good starting point, a good place to approach all of this, I actually got this inspiration from a book in particular, which I'm going to link down below. I'm also going to link with that a book that I'm currently reading on the Holy Grail. I've been really also kind of going into the Grail mysteries. So if that is something you're interested in, please let me know, because we could always go deeper with this. But for now, I came across this concept and it really sort of bloomed in my mind in a way that I think would be very useful, both for approaching the legends themselves. So if you're gonna take this on your own and approach the Arthurian legends, King Arthur, on your own, you have kind of a method of looking at things, but it also feels useful for spirituality in general and spiritual growth. So imagine when you approach the legends that there are 3 layers to it. There are 3 grades, and almost like 3 grades of initiation, because I do think the order here is very important. And the first grade is the grade of Arthur. Then we have the grade of Merlin, and then the grade of Guinevere. And we will get into how you can approach the stories from these different levels, but along the way of describing them, you're also going to get some spiritual insight, I think. So the first grade, the grade of Arthur, this is all about your morals, your values, what you literally go out and do in the world. What are your actions? How do you help people? How do you show compassion? What is it that you value? What is your code of ethics? What is your honor? What are you loyal to? These are the questions in the grade of Arthur. And you can really see this in the stories of the knights and certain temptations or certain, initiations and tests that they come across, certain missions that they take on. And by the way, none of these are more or less important than the other. What's important is kind of having an understanding of all 3. So the grade of Arthur, I think, is incredibly important as a starting point. And this is very meaningful for someone on a spiritual journey as well, because it's not just, the work, the understanding, the insights that you gain, the energy that you work with on your own. It's also how you live your life. It's how you walk day to day. And in fact, that's actually the first thing to really look at is, how do I treat other people? What is it that I stand for? What do I value? What are my code of ethics? And in really refining that and developing yourself, it's an internal process that also affects the external. So we're not saying it's just external, but this is a very concrete way to look at it and to see how you are faring in your spiritual journey, because you notice when your interactions with people change, when the way that you live your life and the things that you do, the things that you feel called to do, you notice when those things shift and change, and they will. If you're transforming yourself internally and transforming externally as well, these things change, and we're always on this journey of self-development and realizations and learning. And I think it's vital to really have a solid footing in this grade, the grade of Arthur, before you go into the next one, which I think is where a lot of people actually kind of, get led astray, is that maybe they go into the next sphere, the next grade of initiation before they are ready, and that is the grade of Merlin. And this is magic. This is working with energy. This is understanding that there's more than what meets the eye. There's like an underlying force behind everything. And being able to wield these powers for your vision and your will. There's a very creative potential with this. You know, this is the realm also of understanding the elements, understanding the influences that flow through you, and being able to do something with them. That is the grade of Merlin. So you can see how entering this new level of power, how having those codes of ethics, those values, those personal, you know, as an individual, but an individual connected to the community, but as an individual in the grade of Arthur, how it's really important to develop those things before you start really working with the energies in the grade of Merlin. I think this is why too a lot of people who are magical practitioners are told to study, you know, and work on just self-development before you actually start necessarily like practicing magic. Now we can have different approaches to this, you know, our whole lives are a journey of self-development, and you can kind of touch into yourself inwardly and know when it is that you are ready. And if you're knowledgeable about the tarot, I want you to tap into the tarot for a moment and think about Merlin as the magician. And this is learning what tools you have at hand, what the elemental forces are, learning to wield your own magic and kind of take your individuality, which hopefully you've worked on in the grade of Arthur, and decide what it is you want to do with this. You know, what is it that you are creating? What is it that you are manifesting? What magic is in your life? What magic do you see around you? It's actually like a realization that these forces are real and they are at play. So with that in mind, the magician is the grade of Merlin. The high priestess, which is the next card in the major arcana, is the grade of Guinevere. So if you're familiar with the tarot, this should already give you a stepping point from one to the other, because you likely, you know, we have different paths, but you likely don't get to the grade of Guinevere, the high priestess, without first having at least an understanding of the powers at play and the forces and, you know, the different types of impulses and influences and energy that work in the world. The grade of Guinevere is a deeper spiritual journey. You could think of it as a more receptive journey if you think of the high priestess, of deepening intuition, deepening knowledge of higher worlds, deepening knowledge of like, who am I? And where do I fit into this, you know, grand cosmic play? And it's interesting because when you start walking the path of the mystic, maybe, you know, stepping away from the path of the magician, now walking the path of the mystic, the high priestess, you might realize that you aren't doing as much like spell crafting, especially for personal gain. Or if you are doing spell crafting, it's in a way that you're actually like, you're setting up environments and reminders of the inner transformation and the inner processes that happen within you, so that you're almost like you use your altar as a mirror, or you know, set your space in such a way that you are in touch with those inner forces. But there's something too about maybe realizing in the magician Merlin grade that you can, you know, wield forces to your will, and you literally can create change and make things happen for yourself. You can manifest things. There comes a point where like there's something not quite satisfactory, especially if you're looking at this from more of a selfish perspective. There's something that's not satisfactory until you get that deeper, you know, compassion, openness, love, heart chakra, openness, reception of the high priestess, and you receive kind of higher grades of knowledge and wisdom. You also might be practicing less physical magic because you might not have as much of a need to. I kind of find when I surrender to a higher purpose that spirit kind of takes me on my own path. And you know, this path might go through periods of pain, and that doesn't mean that you've, done something wrong or had bad thoughts, but in fact, maybe you are meant to transform that pain. And this is part of your greater mission and purpose, which kind of, circles back in a way to the Grade of Arthur. So the divine purpose and plan might not align exactly with what you specifically wanted in your path of manifestation and magic. But that doesn't mean that those magical forces aren't there. Once again, we're not saying that one sphere is better than another, but rather we're kind of seeing how we can layer them and come to a greater understanding. So very briefly, once again, the Grade of Arthur is the grade of integrity, of walking in this world, of courage to really align yourself with your values, have a code of ethics, and constantly developing yourself in the world. And then the Grade of Merlin is being able to have mastery over the elements, mastery over a skill, even being an artist, being a scientist, being someone who is curious and learning about all of the things that are at play, and being able to create something with it and wield them according to their will. We're just kind of a developing too of the will. And then the Grade of Guinevere is divine love and deeper mysteries. It's the path of the mystic. It's the path of surrender and reception to intuitive wisdom, to the higher planes. You can't easily jump from one to the other. You kind of have to sort of go through your own process of this, and it shows up in different ways. So let's go back to the Arthurian legends and mysteries and think about how we might, look at each of the stories from these different perspectives, because you can actually read them from each level. So here's just, an example. The Knights of the Round Table. In the Grade of Arthur, in the Round Table itself, in the Grade of Arthur, you would be looking at these, literal personalities and the lessons that they learn, and them sitting together unified with King Arthur in this round table, and kind of what that represents in the level of the story and the events of the stories itself. If you were to look at this in the Grade of Merlin, this would be a bit more like a magic circle. I think of those stone circles as well, and kind of ancient ritual wisdom, and what happens when energy is contained in this sort of a way. If you were to look at it from the Grade of Guinevere, you might actually see the Round Table as a celestial map. And the knights representing archetypes of, perhaps the zodiac, and the greater mysteries of the celestial sphere. If you were an alchemist, the Grade of Arthur might be physically using the materials and, making something happen on the physical plane. And then when you step into the Grade of Merlin, you might actually realize, there's kind of a greater force, perhaps a planetary influence, or, like an impulse with each of these different ingredients. And what I'm actually doing is I'm working with energy. And then the Grade of Guinevere, you take that internal and you say, actually, I'm alchemizing within myself. And perhaps these materials represent that, and that helps me better connect with that. But I'm experiencing the deeper mystery of what I am transforming within myself and initiating within myself, and how that reverberates through the cosmos. So I hope that you found this video interesting and inspiring, and do let me know what you think in the comments below. If there's anything that you'd be curious about delving into with this series. And like I said, check out those books. Let me know if you're interested in me going deeper on the Grail mysteries, because it is quite deep and quite fascinating. And otherwise, I will see you all soon. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please like and subscribe. I will see you next time.